Story 1. I feel like it should be an option, but I worry it will not help as much as it should. It is bonkers how often the app shows a female delivery person in one vehicle, often a bicycle, but a man in a completely different car arrives, to be honest. I do not know how any of it works, but if someone is supposed to be verifying these things, they are not. I just shrug and move on. But if I were a woman, that would be terrifying. Story 2. Oh, thank God. I do not have to make the fake phone call to my cat saying, "Hey, I am just getting in the car now. See you in 10. Story 3. Sounds good and useful. However, this is a band-aid. They do not want to spend money on vetting their drivers and ensuring a secure environment for all customers. It is cheaper. Story 4. I support and understand the need for the option. Female drivers should also have an only female clients option for exactly the same reason. At the same time, I find it very sad that we live in a world where such an option is both necessary and understandable. Story 5. I'm fine with the female driver option. I'm pissed that they ignored rampant sexual harassment and assault allegations for years before offering it. Story 6. As someone who had to file a police report on an Uber driver for harassment, I think it's a fantastic thing. Story 7. When I was a cab driver, I especially liked picking up the dancers after the clubs closed. They were always so happy to see another woman and to be treated like human beings at 2:30 in the morning when they just wanted to go home. They also tipped really well, even if it was in $1 bills. Story 8. Every time I ordered an Uber for women, a male driver showed up. I am not sure what the loophole is, but it makes me feel even more cautious about men who find their way into the women-only feature. Story 9. That makes sense. Women navigate many more dangers than most men realize, so if it gives them peace of mind, there is no problem. Story 10. I have taken an Uber with women friends where I drop them off first, then go to my destination. If a woman is driving, she may ask how we know each other, and that is it. If a man is driving, he will almost always make comments like, "Damn, she's hot. That's your girl?" Or, "You hitting that?" It is astonishing how some men behave when no women are present. Story 11. Why would anyone have a problem with it? I want a woman to feel safe when she is being transported. Story 12. Once, an Uber driver berated me the entire ride because he was mad I wasn't alone like he expected. I was so unnerved I thought he might try to do something awful, so I left. Story 13. It is a good idea in theory, but Uber has a poor track record with safety and accountability. I hope they do not use this as a public relations shield while continuing to fail to handle harassment and assault reports seriously. Story 14. I support it. If it makes women feel more comfortable, it is a good thing. I am not lying. Many men can be creepy. Story 15. Safety should never be controversial. If female riders and drivers both feel more comfortable, it is a win. Story 16. I really don't see an issue with this. Some women may feel more comfortable. Why prevent that? Story 17. I am a man and was a rideshare driver for about 8 years, driving for both Uber and Lyft. I fully support this. Far too many female friends have told me horror stories about inappropriate comments and actions by male drivers. I frequently told them that if they use rideshare services, they should request to be dropped off or picked up several doors away from their actual residence. The companies may check criminal and driving records of potential drivers, but someone can be a creep for decades without committing a crime. Uber and Lyft were my side hustle until they were no longer worthwhile. For a couple of years I had a sub-side hustle driving adult entertainers to and from work. It started when I drove an entertainer from her apartment to the strip club where she worked, and she asked if she could pay me cash for future rides. She had determined I was not a creep and then passed my number to her colleagues. I was making an extra few $100s a week just from club runs. All because so many male drivers make inappropriate comments to women trying to get to and from work. This experience opened my eyes to how terrifying it must be to exist as a woman. Story 18, of course. A drunk woman trying to get home safely should not have to worry about being sexually assaulted by taxi drivers. Story 19. I do not see why offering a feature that helps women feel safer would be a bad thing. Story 20. I asked my husband, who drives for Uber, how he feels about this. He said it doesn't bother him at all. Some women don't want a man picking them up. Most men don't have a problem with this and understand how dangerous it can be for women. Story 21. I love this. I am a single woman who lives alone. My Uber account name is just my initials and I do not have a picture. I do not want Uber Eats drivers to know I am a woman for late-night deliveries. Perhaps I am being a little paranoid and watch too many documentaries. I do not use Uber to travel very often, but last month I did. The driver shook his head, argued with me, and said he did not understand why I used only my initials. I gave up trying to explain myself. I really like having the option to choose a female driver. Story 22. It took them a decade, thousands of incidents, and an internet full of women saying this would help. But hey, progress. Story 23. I fully support it. I feel unsafe on most Uber or taxi rides. Sadly, the option is not available in my area. Story 24. Speaking as a man, I observe that many men either view women as their property or as their enemies. Story 25. I'm a man, and I don't like being in a car with some male drivers. I certainly wouldn't want to be a woman in a car with some of those drivers. I'm not saying that all male drivers are questionable, but enough are that women should have a way to avoid them. Story 26. Great. Traveling solo as a woman can sometimes feel a little sketchy, even though I know most Uber and Lyft drivers are not a threat. I do not usually request a female driver, but it is reassuring to know that option is available. Story 27. Ostensibly good, but it is a diffusion of responsibility on the part of Uber. Instead of addressing problematic drivers, which would require Uber to acknowledge authority over them and classify them as employees, a classification the company wants to avoid, it offers a reporting option that shifts responsibility onto users. Few people are likely to use the service in the long run because it will increase wait times, and the more people use it, the worse the delays become. Nevertheless, offering the option allows Uber to avoid responsibility. Story 28. I have seen several posts from women who were hit on, intimidated, or stalked by Uber drivers. A women-only driver preference option would be a great idea. Story 29. I think it is a great idea. I am a man, but I have come to understand that women live with a constant, often unrecognized fear simply by existing in public. If this helps relieve some of that fear in this situation, great. It does not appear to harm anyone. It only helps. The unfortunate part is that there are likely not enough women drivers to make this available everywhere, but it sounds like it would be helpful to offer the option. Story 30. That makes sense, but I think they are going to wait a long time. I can't remember ever having a female Uber driver. Story 31. It is very sad that this is necessary, but I am glad the option exists. I hope women drivers can have an option for women passengers only, and that we reach a place where such measures are no longer needed as soon as possible. Story 32. They really need an option to filter out racist drivers, supporters of Make America Great Again, conspiracy theory believers, or generally unstable drivers. I just had an experience where a driver who supports Make America Great Again was yelling racial slurs at Latino drivers nearby and telling me that all mass shooters are transgender. Thank goodness I passed well enough that no one could tell I am transgender. Otherwise I might have become a hate crime statistic. I refuse to use Uber until they better vet their drivers and will walk rather than use their service again. I feel like rideshare driving has become the job of choice for people who cannot hold down steady employment because they are unstable. Story 33. I like it. If men want men-only drivers, that should be an option too. Story 34. As a man who has had to stop being friends with more than 10 men because they would not stop harassing women, I support this. The truth is that many men cannot be trusted to be alone with women. Women deserve to feel safe when they travel. Even though not all or even most men would harass or assault a woman in their Uber, that does not mean it does not happen. If you get angry at women wanting to be safe, you are the reason this service exists. Story 35. Male Uber driver here who could lose a few passengers because of it. I think it is a great idea. Some men can be absolute creeps. It is already scary enough to get into a stranger's car and trust that they will take you where you need to go. I have had female passengers panic when the Uber application takes me down a route that is different from what they are used to. Once I show them the map and that it is going to their destination, they relax. It is eye-opening. Women are often on high alert, watching every turn to ensure the driver is doing what they expect. I imagine having a female driver would help women feel more relaxed. Story 36. What does that tweet say? Without men, who would protect women? Protect us from whom? Story 37. I'm a man. Yesterday at work, I had to help a contractor who came in to do some simple tasks. I work at a school, and this guy immediately started telling me how he used to work at a high school and it was tough for him because some of those girls were hot. Bro, you don't know me. What compels a grown man to share that with? Me? Does this guy walk up to every man he sees and say, "What's up? I'm a pedophile?" I had a lot of female friends back in high school, and I remember one day all of them were casually talking about times they've been creeped on. I'm 36 now, and honestly I feel like every woman I've met has one of these stories. And it's sickening. Story 38. It shifts responsibility back to the consumer again. Uber is essentially hitchhiking that pretends to be a taxi service. It is not a taxi service and avoids the regulations that would apply to taxis. If it actually screened its drivers, this would be unnecessary. Because it does not screen sufficiently, incidents like this are portrayed as a good or understandable choice, but they are neither. This situation should not exist in the first place. Story 39. As someone with aunties, a mother, and a daughter, I have zero issue with it at all. Story 40. It is unfortunate that it has to exist, but I am glad it does as an option to make women feel safer. Maybe it would not hurt to add a men-only option for fun and to silence the but if roles were reversed crowd. Story 41. Women are less likely to assault women. If you think this is a sexist power play, I pray for your wives, sisters, and daughters. Story 42. I'd love to live in a world where that's not needed, but we are far from that place. Story 43. As a guy, I cannot wait for Waymo to show up in my town. Uber, taxis, and Lyft are a crapshoot. Drivers range from competent to those who cannot follow traffic laws or who listen to terrifying hate speech on the radio. Story 44. This will reveal how many male drivers are using fraudulent accounts that claim to be female. Story 45. This made me think of Todd's app in BoJack Horseman. We all know how that ended up if you know. Story 46. I think Uber needs to do a better job of vetting its drivers. Story 47. I think it is easy to understand when the number one threat to women's lives and bodily safety is men. Story 48. If you had a creepy or inappropriate Uber driver, especially one who now knows where you live, you would not be asking. I bet most of us have experienced that at least once. Story 49. If you have a problem with this, you are probably a creep. Story 50. As a man, I do not blame them at all. Great idea. Hefmith men. Jesus Christ. Story 51. A woman who is a friend of mine was almost raped in an Uber, so I approve. Story 52. So Uber's solution to "we can't keep women safe" is, okay, we'll just separate you? Classic corporate. We can't fix the problem, but we can brand it. Story 53. I try not to live in fear of men, but I was sexually assaulted in the past. I have been working on it through therapy, but on bad days I do not want to be alone in a car with a man. I am sure the driver is wonderful, but that is sometimes how my brain works. I especially want a woman to drive me home or to another place if it is dark. I feel much safer. Story 54. It is a continual disappointment that we live in a world where this is necessary, but I am glad to have it if it helps. I do not use Uber, so I do not know how the application works. My first concern would be whether there is a way for men to weaponize an option to draw out women drivers. My other concern is social. If a transgender woman orders a ride from a cisgender woman driver, or vice versa, and the cisgender driver reacts negatively, what fallout would result? I see so much anti-transgender coverage in the news targeting people who are simply trying to live their lives, and I would hate to see another aspect of life put through that ringer. Story 55. Most drivers are men, so there will likely be supply and demand issues. especially since female drivers tend to avoid the times and locations when women most need a safe ride home. There will likely also be issues related to gender identity, but I would assume service providers have legal protections to address them. Story 56. Lyft has been doing this for a while. Glad Uber is catching on. Story 57. I drove rideshare in Austin, Texas, for years. I understand. I used to talk with many women about driving for work, and they were afraid to do it even during the day. I had many women in my car who were nervous and guarded simply because I was a man. Story 58. I think it speaks volumes about the number of predatory men that there is a clear market need for this. Remember that they did not start by offering this. It became a necessary response. Story 59. I noticed this as well when I was visiting Asia with my girlfriend earlier this year. In China, when ordering Didi Taxi, I consistently had male drivers. But when my girlfriend ordered taxis, we almost exclusively had female drivers. Some people feel it's necessary, but it's understandable, sadly. Story 60. If it helps women feel safer when going out, then I am all for it. Story 61. At age 14, I had a bad experience with a male taxi driver. I would like this option in the application. It might help me stop being afraid to use ride-hailing services such as Uber. I have been traumatized by taxis ever since, and I cannot ride in one alone now. Story 62. As the father of two 20-something women who often use a ride-sharing service to get home by themselves, I am completely in favor of the option. Story 63. It is needed and appreciated for both female drivers and passengers. Story 64. Cannot wait for the first person to get a transgender woman and start complaining because the driver is a man. Story 65. Anyone who's mad about this is the exact type of person who caused it. Story 66. I encourage everyone to read this article in relation to why they may have decided to do this. Gift article from the New York Times. Uber's festering sexual assault problem. Uber received a report of sexual assault or sexual misconduct in the United States almost every 8 minutes on average between 2017 and 2022, sealed court records show, a level far more pervasive than what the company has disclosed. Story 67. They are failing to address the main issue. There is a complete lack of concern for vetting their drivers. Story 68. I am pretty sure these changes are in response to state legislation aimed at making Uber safer. Uber played very dirty during that legislative fight, but I am glad they recognize the problem. Here is my scary Uber story. While driving to the airport alone at night, the driver asked me what country I was from. After I answered, he continued talking about how he and his friends travel there for sexual tourism. That was terrifying because I was a young woman alone in a car with a much larger man as the driver. Story 69. That is very sad and telling. Many of us men do not know how to behave. Story 70. I think it is obvious why the option exists and that all opposition to it entails ignoring some aspect of reality. Story 71. I think it is a brilliant idea and should have been an option from the start. I hope it includes an option allowing women drivers to choose only women passengers. Story 72. I think this is a good move. There should also be an option for men to match only with men. Story 73. It is a good option if they feel unsafe with a male driver. Some people have had bad experiences, so the concern is not entirely unfounded. They may have difficulty finding a driver late at night. I have not seen many female Uber drivers. Story 74. I always wondered why they did not implement this a long time ago. The only reasonable explanation I can think of is that people could target female drivers by using an account registered to a woman to request a ride. Story 75. As a man, I absolutely support this. It's a step in the right direction, and anyone who opposes it should consider that they may be part of the problem. I have two sisters, and I prioritize their safety over the fragile egos of people who are offended by this. Story 76. Anything that makes day-to-day life safer and more comfortable for women. I am all for it. Story 77. It took them long enough to realize not every woman wants a surprise adventure with her Uber driver. Story 78. This could give the company more satisfied female customers, and for good reason. Many men do not realize how different it is to live as a woman. Men fear being laughed at, women fear for their safety. If this offer works, it would give women the option to take a ride-hailing service without that nagging fear. More revenue and more customers from a large market segment. Story 79. No opinion, really. If that makes them feel safer, then go for it. Story 80. As a man, I understand, but it is also sad that women have had these horrible experiences that make things like this necessary. Story 81. Unfortunately, some drivers make this necessary. Obviously not all do, but there is always a portion. It's why Winnipeg has a women-only taxi service for Indigenous women. Sometimes we fall short and we need to admit it. Story 82. I like the idea conceptually, but as a Californian I know it is completely illegal here. Uber is offering this service in California, but it is only a matter of time until it is shut down. The Unruh Civil Rights Act in California makes it illegal to offer single-gender services or to alter business rules in response to a client's gender. California bars and clubs cannot even hold ladies' nights anymore because the courts ruled that it is illegal to offer discounts to women that are not available to men. A service that refuses to assign male drivers to clients stands no chance in our courts. All persons within the jurisdiction of this state are entitled to the full and equal accommodations, advantages, facilities, privileges, or services in all business establishments of every kind whatsoever. The Unruh Act leaves little wiggle room, and because the law specifically provides a private right of action, there is a 100% chance that an attorney will eventually file a class action in our state on behalf of men who drive for Uber, which will shut the option down. Because Uber is based in California, there is a decent chance that it will vanish elsewhere when that happens. Story 83. That sounds like a good way for women to be targeted by a fake profile. It goes both ways. I understand the intention, but it will probably not work out well in practice. Story 84. I like it. Sadly, it says a lot about men that it has to happen. Story 85. Just remember they will cloak it as the company being responsible and women-friendly, but you would not need this option if their drivers were paid, bonded, insured, had passed background checks, were vetted, and were covered by the company. I agree. In this dangerous world, women should be allowed to choose the sex of their driver because many sexual assaults have occurred with ride-hailing services. The real issue is that company profits rely on gig workers over whom the company provides little support, oversight, or control. If we had modernized taxi companies with licensed drivers, bonded and insured coverage, background checks, and publicly displayed taxi licenses that can be used to track a friend's ride if they choose to share it, there would be fewer sexual assaults. Summary. Do not be fooled into thinking this is a gender war or a debate about liberals, feminists, or male perceptions. This is about companies avoiding regulation and responsibility for their employees and customers and prioritizing shareholder value. Story 86. I cannot imagine that people who oppose this have any women in their lives whom they care about. Story 87. More than 50% of the drivers listed as women are men using a woman's profile. Drivers set up accounts in someone else's name or share accounts. Either way, passengers cannot be sure that the person picking them up passed a background check or has a good driving record. We need to report this every time it happens. Uber must crack down on this. Story 88. 95% of my Uber drivers have always been men. If someone needs a female driver to feel safe, there should be an option. Everyone wins. Story 89. Why not add options for male drivers only and female drivers only, and likewise options for male customers only and female customers only? That way everyone can be happy. Story 90. Man. Women. If all men disappeared today, who would protect you? Women. Protect us from what? Story 91. If I were a woman, I would never get into a car alone with a man who had to do nothing except download an app. Story 92. There are more important things happening in the world to be upset about. If it makes women safer and more comfortable, it is a good thing. Story 93. As a woman, I think it is about time. I have been alone in too many taxis with drivers who were disgusting. Unfortunately, there will not be enough female drivers to go around. Story 94. I hate that this has to be an option. Fuck. People, don't be creepy. I fully support offering it. Everyone should be able to feel safe. Story 95. I wish, but that would mean waiting too long for a driver. I use Uber constantly, and the number of male drivers who think over-ear headphones and sunglasses mean they should talk to you during the trip is mind-numbing. Story 96. I am a guy, for what it is worth. I think it is very telling that this has become necessary. A lot of men need to change their behavior. Story 97. As a woman, I think it is good for people to have the option of men-only or women-only spaces. Some men do not trust other men because of past trauma, such as abuse. Some women are just as bad. There may even be more problematic women than men who are not caught, so men should be allowed the same preference. I would rather have a man. It does not matter who it is. Anyone can be dangerous, but men are generally stronger and may be better able to protect you. Story 98. Better than pink taxis. They are not branded "Here Be Women." Creeps, approach. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.